For many aspiring sports broadcasters, this is a very frightening question. This is something that's keeping aspiring sportscasters up at night, and I know it, because if this was me at 18 or 20 years old, this would keep me up as well. And we are going to tackle this scary question, and we are going to help you formulate some plans coming up next.
Welcome to the Sportscasters Club radio show, where it's all about becoming a better sportscaster and a better sports fan. And now, your host, a man who began his sportscasting career by sleeping on hotel floors during road trips, Rick Schultz.
Welcome to the Sportscasters Club online radio show. I am Rick Schultz. Thanks for joining us, and I really appreciate everyone who interacts with us at sportscastersclub.com and checks out everything we have there, from our books, our online sports broadcasting course, all the free materials, our advice, tips, all the great things we have at sportscastersclub.com. But today we're going to touch on something that has frightened a lot of people, not only sportscasters, but frightened a lot of people in general. And we are going to tackle the question, how will AI affect sports broadcasting? How will artificial intelligence, how will it change sports media? How will it change the industry? How will it change your possible career paths? How will it affect the way you do your job if you have one? And we're going to touch on all these things. And it really came from a question we got recently from a listener, Tyler, up in Maine. And Tyler posed this question and asked, how will AI affect sports broadcasting? And we did answer that question in a recent episode. But it was just so important that we felt we just needed to spend some more time and really dig into this issue of artificial intelligence, what it means for the sports media landscape, how it's going to affect career possibilities, how it's going to affect the industry. And so we're going to touch on that today. It's going to be a fun episode. Glad to have you with us. And it's really a great time it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be a human, if you ask me, if you ask my opinion. And I come at it as someone who is incredibly interested in the innovations and the new way of the new technologies of the year 2023 and beyond. Because I'm somebody who follows companies like Microsoft and Meta and Tesla, and thinking about what these companies are going to do in the next decade with artificial intelligence blows my mind. Blows my mind. I think by far the company that's going to be the biggest AI company, the biggest participant in this huge boom, and the biggest, probably the biggest company in the world when it's all said and done in a decade's time, is Tesla. I think what is coming from Tesla and Elon Musk is absolutely mind-blowing, and I think most people have no idea what it's all about. They have no idea what's coming. Most people just think of, and I'm sorry for going on this tangent, but I just have to throw this out there, mainly because I want you to be able to come back here in a decade and hear what I said about it. But in my opinion, I think Tesla is going to be the biggest AI company in the world. I think it is right now, and nobody has any clue that that's true. Most people think, oh, Tesla, they make electric cars. They make these tiny little putt-putt cars that have to be charged up for hours and hours. That's, first of all, not true at all. And I'm not coming at this as some kind of global warming zealot. Not at all. Probably exactly the opposite of that. But the truth, in my opinion, is that people have no idea what's coming from Tesla. They're so much more than a car company when you consider what they're going to be doing with self-driving, robo-taxis, where you just get in the car and it drives you where you want to go and you can sit in the back seat. That's coming. That is coming very quickly. The Optimus robots that are going to be robots that perform tasks at a much more efficient cost than human beings. That might be scary, but that's coming as well. And they're going to explode with that. I think what Elon says is true. Optimus robots are going to be more valuable part of Tesla than the car business will. Think about that. Everything Tesla's built from the time they were formed until now, the robots that are not even out in the market yet are going to be bigger than all of that combined. And then when you think about semi-trucks, can you imagine a time when a truck leaves a factory with a bunch of products, drives to a town, a robot gets out of this automated electric vehicle, delivers the package, gets back into the vehicle, and moves on to the next town? I think that's what's coming. I don't know if it's going to be 5 years, 10 years, but that kind of automation, robotics, artificial intelligence is coming, and Tesla's poised to take advantage of all of it. Not investment advice, of course, but that's where my mind is when I think about artificial intelligence, and so I think it's important to lay that out there. So the question today, how will this development and this artificial intelligence and the innovation that's coming in the next decade, how will it affect sports broadcasting? We're going to answer that question directly coming up next.
If you're enjoying the show, check out our 7-hour online sports broadcasting course. We cover play-by-play, talk show hosting, television, and much more. Visit sportscastersclub.com and click on Online Sportscasting Class.
All right. So, you're considering a career in sports media. Maybe you've applied to college. Maybe you're in high school. Maybe you're already in the workforce and you're thinking about changing directions and trying something new, and sports media and sports broadcasting has always interested you. So if you're thinking about it, you've got to consider artificial intelligence and how the industry is going to be changed in the next decade. I think there are different areas of sports broadcasting that are going to be affected in different ways. So let's say you've got some different segments of sports media. You've got writing duties, you've got anchoring, talk show hosting, play-by-play, television. Let's break these out individually and think about how artificial intelligence is going to affect them. All right, first, let's start with some of the basic foundational parts of sports media, and that's the writing duties and roles, the writing functions. Because a lot of sports media, you may not know it or think about it, but a lot of it comes down to writing. Whether you're preparing a sportscast, whether you're preparing a script for a program, whether you're building out the script for a television feature program or a documentary or a podcast, a lot of these things start with writing. They start foundationally with writing. Sometimes you're putting it down actually on a pad or on you're using Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever other word processor you're using on your Mac, on your iPad, whatever you're using. A lot of these sports media roles are starting with writing. And so I think that's the lowest hanging fruit that's going to be affected. And in fact, already is being affected and changed by artificial intelligence. I know a lot of podcasters, a lot of content creators, a lot of media professionals who are already using AI to write their scripts, to write their stories, to turn their content into books. It is phenomenal. In fact, Buzzsprout, which is the platform I use for this Sportscasters Club online radio show, they have some functionality that can incorporate artificial intelligence. One of the reasons that I love Buzzsprout, and you can look in the description of this podcast if you're interested in starting a podcast of your own. I think it's a great thing for sportscasters to do, and especially aspiring media professionals. But I think AI is going to affect and is affecting writing as the lowest hanging fruit. First and foremost, it's already happening. So writing is changing. You can be a lot more efficient when you plug in some data, let's say into Chat GPT, and then you're getting it then it spits something out at you, and you can use that to formulate an outline. You can formulate some ideas, different people use it in different ways. Obviously, ethically, plagiarism is something that you don't want to do. It's a no-no in any kind of life, whether you're running for president or if you are writing a paper in school. Regardless, plagiarism is obviously not something that ethically is right and that we're not going to condone. But just in terms of using the technological tools at our disposal, you can be a lot more efficient in putting together scripts and writing and different things using AI. And also just to learn about something. So let's say I want to do a program about the 1989 Chicago Bears, and I want to get some baseline information on how to write something and build a script. I can enter that in Chat GPT, and 30 seconds later, I've got a full script that I can then change around, put it in my words, and formulate a script for a program. So that's one thing that's going to be affected immediately. The writing functions, the writing roles. That's going to change, and we can be a lot more efficient starting right now. In fact, starting months ago, we've been able to do it. So that's one role of sports media. Let's talk about anchoring. You know, that's when you turn on WFAN and the top of the hour, they've got the 2-minute sportscast giving you the scores from last night, the stories from today, the scheduled games coming up tonight. That's the anchoring role, whether it be on radio, TV, whether you turn on SportsCenter and you see Kevin Connors hosting a program that's going through the highlights from that night's games, whatever the case might be. Obviously, a lot of these roles have morphed into more opinion and a more feature-driven than they were 10 or 20 years ago. But nonetheless, the role of the anchor is, in my opinion, going to be the next lowest hanging fruit that's going to be changed dramatically by artificial intelligence. I think much of anchoring will be done by AI. And you might think I'm crazy when I say that, but I have seen, for example, YouTube content creators, I've seen them create programs and then enter their data into Chat GPT and have that same program be put into many different languages, or even delivered new content with that same host voicing the words. It's the host. They didn't actually broadcast it, but the AI created their likeness on the screen voicing this script. And so I certainly think what you're going to see is artificial intelligence doing the updates. So if you're looking to get into sports media as an anchor solely to deliver top-of-the-hour updates, I think that role is going to be largely devoted to artificial intelligence. Now, you may need, in the interim, you might need a technician type person or a data type person that's going to help direct the AI to create that or be the likeness that it uses. But I think those roles are going to be severely impacted, certainly on radio and in different areas of television. Now, I mentioned that a lot of the anchoring duties, or let's say on ESPN, on SportsCenter, whatever it is, the highlight shows, a lot of that is morphed into more feature-driven and more opinion. I think in those areas, those particular roles might be protected a little bit more against the complete takeover of artificial intelligence. Because if you're tuning in to see the highlights of a game, but you also want to hear the opinion of the anchor, then that is a little bit more difficult to have AI do. Just because if you want something to be the authentic, minute-by-minute opinion of a personality, the easiest way and the most direct way to get that is with the real person delivering the updates and delivering the scores. But don't think that they can't take the thought process of Anchor A and just based on all the data that's been fed in, have that person voice opinions that the AI knows that person probably has, because that's coming as well. That is coming. It's mind-blowing to think about, but artificial intelligence, I mean, the computer, that's the point of it. The computers can learn. So you can feed in to the artificial intelligence computer data from, let's say, 10 years of talk shows. Let's say Stephen A. Smith. Let's say you feed it the data of 10 years of his opinions, and then you throw out an issue, and it's going to be able to tell you his opinions on that issue. That's mind-blowing, but that's coming. So the role of an anchor is definitely going to be affected, and that brings us to talk show hosting. That role is kind of a, it's not as low-hanging fruit to me as writing and anchoring, but talk show hosting is going to be affected too. I definitely see a time in the future where maybe the talk show host does a live program on one day, and then the next 4 days of the week, it's AI generated, and we as listeners or viewers can't tell the difference. What do you think of that? How mind-blowing is that? But I think that's true, and I think that's coming. That's artificial intelligence. And maybe the model is that you pay extra to get the real person, but the content delivered by the AI is free. I'm just throwing different ideas out there, different revenue streams, different models of how sports radio is going to work in the future. This is a very interesting topic. I'd love to talk to Jason Barrett about this over at Barrett Sports Media, because he works every day with program directors and talk show hosts, and he would have a really great insight. So check him out at barrettsportsmedia.com. But he would have some really interesting thoughts on this topic too. So I definitely think sports talk show hosting is going to be affected in this regard. No question about it. And now let's talk about play-by-play. Play-by-play, how's that going to be affected by artificial intelligence? Now, on one hand, the analog brain that we all have, the analog part of us says, well, of course you're still going to need a human, because you're going to be describing the actions of a game, and every game is unique. Every drive down a basketball court is unique in its own way, and you need a real human to describe that action as they're seeing it. But I think while that's true right now, I believe in the future, this might be hearsay. This might be blasphemy to say this. You might think that I'm absolutely nuts on the Sportscasters Club online radio show to say such a thing as I'm about to say. I've been in this field since I was 18 years old. So we're talking 30 years that I've been in this field, both as a professional, as a broadcaster, as a professor, as a coach. But what I'm about to say is going to probably explode your brain. I think in the future, play-by-play roles will be handled by artificial intelligence. They will. They will. Think about it. If we're already able to have cars that drive themselves, it's already here, and it's going to expand over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And that vehicle can look out and take in sensory data through cameras and filter that data, understand what it is, and learn so it'll be able to anticipate and better understand it the next time it sees it. I think we're going to be able to do the same thing with AI, with play-by-play sports broadcasting, where you'll be able to train a computer, train an artificial intelligence to synthesize a baseball game, to see pitches, to know what they are, to describe the action. So maybe it's Joe Buck's voice, but maybe they train the AI to broadcast the game as if it was Joe Buck, but it's really artificial intelligence. Maybe you turn on a Super Bowl one day and Kevin Burkhardt is doing the broadcast, but it's artificial intelligence Kevin Burkhardt. What do you think of that? Is that something that just blows your mind? It blows my mind. It absolutely does. But do I think that's coming? Yes, I do think that's coming. I do. And And I'm sure, especially if you're a boomer, especially if you're an older broadcaster, a traditional broadcaster, I mean, let's be honest, my philosophy is traditional. I grew up learning from Marty Glickman, the pioneer of radio broadcasting in many ways. And so my philosophy is that you're there to paint the word picture on radio. You're there to describe the action. You're there to make the listener feel as though they were at the game. And so I'm pretty much as traditional as they come. The broadcaster's not there to give opinion. The broadcaster's to describe the action. That's what their job is. But the fact is the fact. And when I look at artificial intelligence, there's no question they're going to be able to train these computers to learn what they're seeing. And how about this? How about this part of it? I mean, when you watch, let's say, a Mets game, one of the great things is you can watch a Mets game. Gary Cohen does such a great job on TV describing the action, playing traffic cop, getting his color analysts involved, whether it's Keith Hernandez, Ron Darling, whomever. And every once in a while, something will occur in a game, and Gary Cohen is able to interject with something related to the history of the Mets or the history of Major League Baseball. You know, you might see an occurrence on the field and Gary Cohen will say, well, that was so much like, 1979 when such and such happened at Shea Stadium or whatever. And I think that is also going to be something AI can do. AI is going to be able to not only describe what it's seeing, but understand the context of what it's seeing and pull up historical information in much greater detail and with much more efficiency than the normal human play-by-play broadcaster can do. I mean, Gary Cohen excels with that. He's terrific. Nobody better, in my opinion. But AI is going to be better at that than most play-by-play guys and girls. Think about it. A human mind has only finite ability, and we can talk about the different spectrums of intelligence with humans, and that's all true. We're not all the same. We all have different gifts and abilities, and some people have photographic memories, and we can talk about the genius types and the different spectrums and all of that. True. But when you talk about AI, that's going to be something that at the snap of a finger, AI is able to pull up information from the past, connect it to what it's seeing right now on the field, and deliver it to the listener or the viewer. So I think artificial intelligence is eventually going to infiltrate, permeate, and take over play-by-play. It's going to dominate play-by-play. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for the listener or the viewer. It might be a bad thing for the broadcaster and for those that are looking at career opportunities. But the truth is, I think there will always be opportunity. It's just going to change. And what we're talking about in this regard a year from now is going to be different than what it is now. And where there are challenges, there's also going to be opportunity. And I don't know all those opportunities that are going to be out there, but I do know that I think this is important to sum things up. I do know that if you're thinking about a career in sports media, I don't think artificial intelligence should dissuade you from pursuing the field. I don't think artificial intelligence should scare you away. Maybe if you're thinking, what do I major in college? Should I go to Fordham, work at WFUV to be a sports reporter, to be a play-by-play broadcaster? Or should I go to Fordham and join the Gabelli Business School because I want to work in business, because sports media is not going to be a thing in the future. It's going to not exist. I don't think that's true. I think it's like water. Water is going to find its level, and if you block off one path, it's going to find something new in a different area of sports media. So do not be scared away by that. So how is this all going to roll out? I'm going to offer just a few thoughts in just a minute.
If this is the year that you want to improve your sports broadcasting skills, then why not start your own podcast? It's simple and fun. We use Buzzsprout to host our podcast, and you can too. Simply click on the Buzzsprout link in today's episode notes. And if you have questions while you are creating your podcast, let us know. We'd like to help you.
All right, Rick Schultz with you here on the Sports Broadcaster. This is the podcast for aspiring sports broadcasters, the Sportscasters Club online radio show. And before we wrap up this show, I just want to talk about quickly, how could this roll out? How could AI roll out? We've talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly. The areas that, in my opinion, are going to be affected first by artificial intelligence. And then the areas of sports media that might take a while, but I still think will be affected. And some of the overarching themes that are going to come as artificial intelligence impacts sports media in the future. And it's coming. But how might it roll out? Well, I think we've already seen a template on how this might roll out. Think about 20 years ago, you had your one broadcast, or 25 years ago. For a team, you had your radio broadcast and your TV broadcast. Or in some markets, just a radio or just a TV, whatever the case might be. And then slowly you had added dimensions of broadcast for teams. So you had a Spanish broadcast and you had a separate broadcast crew, separate broadcasters, and that went out to a Spanish audience on a different platform. It came out in stages, and so you had both. Similar to the way that broadcasting has evolved over the past 10 to 15 years, we now have games that sometimes will be on local TV, and then maybe there's an added or even an exclusive Apple TV or Amazon or something like that. It's not all of it at the beginning. It's just incrementally. Maybe it's a game every couple weeks on Apple, or it's a game a week on Amazon, or it's a broadcast where you have both. You still have your local broadcasters, and then you have the national game of the week. So you might have a Yankees-Red Sox game that's being broadcast by the typical Yankee-Red Sox crews, but also Ernie Harwell's there doing the game for the national radio broadcast. I'm talking 20 years ago. But that's how it started, incrementally. And that's what I think we're going to see as AI complements, maybe that's the word, maybe take over is the word, as it infiltrates, as it permeates sports media. I think it's going to be incremental. So that's another reason why I don't think you need to be scared and frightened, because I think it's not going to happen. You're not going to flip a switch and have sports media taken over by artificial intelligence tomorrow. It's going to take time. It's going to be incremental changes. So first, maybe you see those writing duties being done by the anchor. Maybe the writing part of it is done by AI, and the anchor still delivers the update. Or the play-by-play person is using AI, but still commandeering the broadcast. And then a year, 2 years, 5 years later, maybe that anchor no longer exists in that role, and the entire update is being delivered by AI. It's being written, it's being delivered, the whole thing is automated by the robot, by the computer. So it's going to be incremental. It's not going to be all at once. And then eventually, same thing with play-by-play or television broadcasting. And so maybe that scenario I mentioned where AI Kevin Burkhardt is broadcasting the Super Bowl, maybe that's 20 years away. Maybe it's 25, 30 years away. I don't know. I think it's probably sooner than that. I think these things, these S-curves, these exponential growth patterns usually come very slowly and then suddenly. That's how they happen. So I think you're probably going to look at 10 years from now. We're not going to be able to imagine the future 10 years from now as we sit here now. Just like we couldn't imagine the iPhone. We couldn't imagine the internet. But 10 years down that S-curve where it explodes exponentially, That's what happens. And I think that's what's going to happen in sports media. So it's going to be rolled out slowly. And as the technology learns, gains the information, gains the data, then it will increase. So don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Still pursue what you want to pursue in your career. But this is going to be part of it. Maybe you're the one that's going to go out there and harness this technology to improve the industry. Maybe that's you. So maybe you're combining the business and the media. Maybe that's you. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunities created that aren't here today. So it's not all doom and gloom. I think it's positive. I think as a whole, our society is going to be so much better off in many ways because of this artificial intelligence. We've just got to adapt. And that's what humans do best. We adapt. When I come back, I'm going to wrap up this show and add a final note.
When you're done with this episode, or even if you want to open your browser now, you can go deeper and learn the secrets of sports broadcasting. Search our full list of books at sportscastersclub.com, available from Amazon and Kindle, paperback, and Audible format.
All right, so hopefully this was a thought-provoking episode of the Sportscasters Club online radio show. Hopefully it's something you'll share with others and see what they think. Let me know. Send in a message, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Am I completely out in left field with AI? Am I completely wrong about where I see this going? I don't think so. I mean, I look at, like I said, I look at Tesla and I look at a lot of the other companies, NVIDIA and all these other technology companies and AI companies that are changing the world. Why should we think the sports media industry is going to be any different? Why would it be any different? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Keep me posted on what you think. And again, this has been a fun episode. It's very timely. And I hope you connect with us and take part in a lot of the different things we have to offer at sportscastersclub.com. It's been a fun one. I am Rick Schultz. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. I also appreciate you sharing this episode with others. If you have sports fans or sports media professionals in your life, appreciate you sharing this with them. And until next time, so long.
Thanks for listening to the Sportscasters Club radio show at sportscastersclub.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you will never miss an episode. And thanks for liking, sharing, posting reviews, and spreading the word.